welcome to the Living Hope Thought for the Day. Today's thought for the day will take us into the first book of Kings. 1 and 2 Samuel are essentially the story of King David, the way that he was anointed king, the way that he waited while Saul was still alive and humbly submitted to God's purposes and timing. And in 2 Samuel we see David develop and grow, and incredible things happen, and the number of enemies subdued under King David is very considerable. When we move into the Kings, we're now moving into a time of transition, a time where David is going to die and when Solomon is going to take over. And this is a very significant moment in history. Solomon has been prepared by God, and quite interestingly, his mother was the lady who David seduced. And Bathsheba, she had been taken by David, and they'd entered into a sexual relationship. They were not married. Uriah is killed, and eventually they do marry. The child born out of the adulterous behavior dies. Solomon is born and lives, and now he is the one who's the successor. The grace of God, the mercy of God, not to cover up sin, sweep it under the carpet, try and pretend it didn't happen, but addressing sin, but still loving and wanting his purposes fulfilled, even through sinful men and women. That's what God does. Saul has died. David has now died. Solomon is on the throne. But then he starts to allow all manner of other gods to come into the land. And that's going to cause a lot of upheaval and problems. And what God says is, at the end of your life and the end of your kingship, things are going to change. The kingdom will be divided. And this is an incredibly sad and bad time in the history of Israel. But one very bright ray of light that's coming in the midst of this doom and gloom is the emergence of prophets, and in particular the prophet Elijah. And in 1 Kings 18 verse 37, we find that Elijah is standing up to the false prophets that have won the devotion of a number of people in the land, the prophets of Baal. And their worship is very sadistic. It involves child sacrifice. It's a real mess. And Elijah bravely steps up, and he builds an altar to the Lord. That's after the Baal priests had had their chance to build their altar, call fire from heaven to devour the sacrifice, and they'd miserably failed, and they were cut themselves to pieces, and they were laying on the floor in a very big mess. But now Elijah builds his altar, and this is what happens. This is his prayer. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you're turning back their hearts again. What is happening here is an incredible man of God standing up to the prophets of Baal, and he is simply seeking God, and he's saying, Lord, answer by fire, send down your fire and consume the sacrifice that I have offered, and let it be not to make my name great, far from that, but let people know that you are the Lord, you are the living God, you're the only one true God. Send fire from heaven and consume the sacrifice. And as he steps back, Elijah sees fire fall. The fire of God falls. The sacrifice is consumed. The prophets of Baal are terrified. Many of them that day are put to the sword. And it is clear there is a prophet of God in Israel who declares the Lord God in his righteousness. that same God is Lord today, and he demands our total allegiance to him. God bless you.